In September 2001, Lower Manhattan's skyline stood complete. Glass towers reached toward heaven, their steel frames catching morning light. Office workers hurried through familiar plazas, coffee in hand, newspapers tucked under arms. The rhythm of commerce hummed through concrete canyons. Then came Tuesday morning, where twin giants once pierced the clouds, only absence remained. 16 acres of twisted metal and broken dreams. Dust settled on empty streets. For months, the wound gaped open, a scar visible from space. Yet amid the silence and sorrow, architects began sketching. Engineers calculated loads, politicians made promises. No one imagined that from this crater of loss would rise something unprecedented. Not just a building, but a declaration. A tower that would carry the weight of memory while reaching toward an uncertain future. Before the world changed forever, the Twin Towers dominated Lower Manhattan's skyline for nearly 3 decades. Completed in 1973, these architectural marvels stood as bold statements of American economic might and engineering prowess. Rising 110 stories each, they transformed what had been a relatively quiet financial district into a vertical metropolis unto itself. The World Trade Center wasn't merely an office complex, it was a small city. Each weekday, nearly 50,000 people passed through its doors. Bankers and bond traders, maintenance workers and mail clerks, restaurant staff and retail employees. The towers housed their own ZIP code, their own subway station, their own ecosystem of commerce and community. For visitors worldwide, the Twin Towers represented American prosperity and ambition realized in steel and glass. Their distinctive silhouettes graced countless postcards, film scenes, and tourist photographs. The observation deck drew 2 million visitors annually, offering unparalleled views of a city that prided itself on reaching ever skyward. Perhaps most significantly, these buildings possessed an air of permanence, of invincibility. Their massive scale and engineering redundancies created an illusion of impregnability. The very name World Trade Center suggested a permanent fixture in global commerce, a cornerstone of the international economic order. No one could have imagined how quickly that sense of permanence would dissolve. The morning of September 11th began like any other. Commuters emerged from subway stations. Street vendors set up coffee carts. Office workers settled at desks, booted computers, and prepared for an ordinary Tuesday. By mid-morning, that ordinary day had transformed into history's darkest chapter. The collapse of both towers represented not just a staggering loss of human life, 2,753 souls in the towers alone, but a violent rupture in America's sense of security and invulnerability. In the immediate aftermath, the physical devastation defied comprehension. Nearly 2 million tons of debris formed a smoldering pile that burned for 99 days. A toxic plume of pulverized concrete, asbestos, lead, mercury, and countless other contaminants settled across Lower Manhattan. The damage extended far beyond visible destruction. Subway tunnels, utility systems, and surrounding buildings all bore invisible wounds. Less frequently discussed are the environmental and health impacts that continue to this day. First responders and recovery workers developed cancers, respiratory illnesses, and PTSD at alarming rates. Residents of nearby neighborhoods reported mysterious ailments that would take years to be officially recognized. The dust cloud carried microscopic tragedy into lungs and bloodstreams in ways medical science is still working to understand. Economically, the attacks delivered a $60 billion blow to Lower Manhattan's economy. Office vacancy rates skyrocketed as businesses fled uptown or across the river to New Jersey. Property values plummeted. The very viability of downtown as a business district came into question. As recovery crews worked around the clock in what became known as the Pile, a different kind of struggle was taking shape in boardrooms and government offices throughout the city. Larry Silverstein found himself in an unprecedented position. Having signed a 99-year lease on the World Trade Center, just 6 weeks before the attacks, He now faced the challenge of rebuilding while battling insurance companies over whether the attacks constituted one event or two separate occurrences, a distinction worth billions in coverage. His persistence would prove crucial in the years ahead, though not without controversy. The families of those lost insisted the entire 16-acre site should become a memorial. Their grief deserved sacred space, they argued, not commercial development. Meanwhile, economic realities pressed for rebuilding. Lower Manhattan needed its commercial heart restored. Thousands of jobs and billions in tax revenue hung in the balance. This tension between memorial and marketplace became the central conflict in determining what would rise from the ashes. The Port Authority, which owned the land, the city of New York under Mayor Bloomberg, and federal agencies all claimed authority over different aspects of reconstruction. Their competing visions created a bureaucratic labyrinth that would slow progress for years. The cleanup itself was a monumental undertaking. For 9 months, workers in protective gear sifted through debris, not just removing rubble, but searching for human remains. Many recovery workers considered the site hallowed ground. Each twisted steel beam removed felt like a sacred duty. Several workers lost their lives during this dangerous phase, their names seldom remembered in official histories, their sacrifice an extension of the tragedy itself. By 2003, the site was finally cleared, and attention turned to what would replace the fallen towers. The Lower Manhattan Development Corporation launched an unprecedented design competition, inviting architects worldwide to reimagine this scarred piece of Manhattan. 7 finalists emerged, each offering radically different visions. Some proposed soaring spires, others horizontal expanses. Some emphasized memorial aspects, others commercial viability. The competition itself became a national conversation about how America should rebuild after tragedy, not just physically, but spiritually. Polish-American architect Daniel Libeskind's Memory Foundation's design ultimately prevailed. His concept featured a spire reaching precisely 1,776 feet, a deliberate reference to America's founding year. The symbolism resonated with the public and officials alike. His master plan included a memorial plaza, museum, and transportation hub alongside commercial towers, arranged to cast no shadow on the memorial on each September 11th. But winning the competition proved only the beginning of another struggle. Larry Silverstein insisted on using his own architect, David Childs of Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, for the main tower. What followed was an uncomfortable collaboration between Libeskind's symbolic vision and Child's practical expertise. The resulting compromise retained the symbolic height, but substantially altered the original concept. Security concerns further transformed the design. The New York Police Department demanded unprecedented protective measures, including a 200-foot blast-resistant concrete base, setbacks from streets, and biological and chemical filtration systems. These requirements created engineering challenges that further delayed construction and altered the tower's appearance. What emerged was a building designed to balance contradictory demands, to be both open and secure, symbolic and functional, a memorial and a marketplace. When ground was finally broken in 2006, 5 years had already passed since the attacks. Politicians gathered for photo opportunities as concrete was poured into the foundation. The ceremony marked the beginning of physical construction, but obscured the years of contentious negotiation, redesign, and compromise that had preceded it. The engineering achievements cannot be overstated. The foundation extended 70 feet below ground, anchored to Manhattan bedrock. The central concrete core, essentially a building within a building, was designed to withstand truck bombs, airplane impacts, and intense fires. The steel structure incorporated lessons learned from the Twin Towers collapse. As construction progressed, so did costs. Initial estimates of $2 billion ballooned to over $4 billion. Much of this increase stemmed from security requirements and design changes, but questions arose about whether taxpayer money should fund what was essentially a private development with symbolic importance. Even the building's name became contentious. Initially called Freedom Tower, the name embodied America's defiant response to terrorism. Yet by 2009, the Port Authority reverted to the more commercially viable One World Trade Center. The change sparked debate about whether America was moving too quickly from commemorating tragedy to commerce as usual. Throughout construction, technological innovations both accelerated and delayed progress. Advanced LED lighting systems, rainwater collection, and energy-efficient windows represented state-of-the-art sustainable design. Yet each innovation required testing against stringent security protocols, often extending timelines. When One World Trade Center finally opened in November 2014, 13 years had passed since the attacks. The publishing company Condé Nast became the anchor tenant, occupying 24 floors. Yet many floors remained empty, a challenge that would persist for years as companies weighed the symbolic importance against practical considerations of cost and security. Today, One World Trade Center stands not just as an architectural achievement, but as a testament to American resilience and the messy process of democratic rebuilding. The structure itself embodies compromise, the necessary condition of democracy, where no single vision dominates completely. Office workers now pass through its lobby daily, most too young to remember the attacks firsthand. Tourists queue for elevator rides to the observation deck, where the view now includes the reflecting pools that mark where the Twin Towers once stood. What was once a wound in the city's fabric has become part of its evolving story. Yet, tensions persist between the site's dual purpose as both working office space and sacred ground. Security measures remind visitors that vulnerability remains part of our modern condition. The memorial pools, with their endless cascading water, draw the eye downward to absence, while the tower pulls our gaze upward toward possibility. Perhaps this tension is precisely what makes One World Trade Center so powerful as a symbol. It refuses simple resolution. It acknowledges loss while insisting on continuation. It remembers the past while creating space for the future. The story of One World Trade Center reveals something profound about American character. When broken, we build again, not quickly or efficiently, but persistently. We argue, compromise, delay, and reconsider. The process is messy and imperfect, frustrating and inspiring. But eventually, steel rises, glass gleams, and the skyline is restored. Different than before, bearing scars of experience, yet reaching once more toward the heavens.